This video is brought to you by boot.dev. Seemingly out of nowhere, Arena Anthologies 1 and 2 were announced and then dropped within a matter of a day. We got a load of new and interesting cards come to the client. Anthologies 1 is largely a bunch of signets and talismans and swords of X and Y, alongside Champion's Helm and Darksteel Plate. Meanwhile, Anthology 2 is a wild collection of absolute classics. Some ones that stand out, even though pretty much every card is a hit for me. Mother of Runes, absolute powerhouse of a legacy card that I'm looking forward to playing in Timeless. Cards like Mana Leak that should have been on the client already, to be honest. Rephelos, which I'm going to talk quite a bit about in this video. And of course, Mox Opal. Fuck yeah, let's go. Some of the cards are exciting to play with. Artifact Lands, Mox Opal, Mother of Runes. Some of them are questionable for some of the formats. Ren and 6 and Rephelos, for example. I'll talk all about that in the video today. But first, a quick message from today's sponsor so I can pay my mortgage. Did you know that according to Stack Overflow, the median salary of a back-end developer in the US in 2024 was $100,000. Does that make you want to learn code? I'm an absolute noob at this stuff, and boot.dev's mission is to help everyone from scrubs like me right up to intermediate and even experienced coders to learn Python. And they have a whole curriculum designed to utilize lessons learned from game design in order to motivate you and support you on your journey to learning Python, complete with achievements, experience gains, and level ups. And it is just that, it is a curriculum. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It aims to at least be a 12-month regimen of theory and practical applications and practice. It's got a free demo available on the site, which you can find through the link below, and a 30-day, no questions queried refund policy. But better yet, they're offering my subscribers 25% off their first year off their annual plan by using my code, PleasantKenobi. Follow the link below or scan the QR code on screen now and start your Python learning journey with boot.dev. Let's start with Anthologies 1 and just talk quickly about the things that are in there. It's all the talismans, all the signets, Champion's Helm, Darksteel Plate, and 4 swords. Sword of Feast and Famine, Sword of Light and Shadow, Sword of Truth and Justice, and Sword of War and Peace. Something I should mention here is that I'm going to play with quite a few of these cards in the Arena client in different formats on the second channel, the new channel, PK Plays. This channel is brand new. Please only go and sub to it if you plan to watch the gameplay. It'll be mainly Timeless, Brawl, and some Standard. I may branch out to Pauper, Pioneer, Modern, and similar on there eventually. But essentially, I can't have gameplay on this channel because you have to niche down on YouTube. The vast majority of my viewers don't want to watch Arena or Magic the Gathering online gameplay, and thus it sort of damages the general reach of the channel when I put up videos that most of my subs don't watch. So all gameplay is now on the second channel for that reason. So to Anthologies 1, they're all 4,000 gems, which I think it's a little bit on the expensive side. It's around 20 to 25 pounds. You do get quite a few cards in there. It's way better value than say buying 4 rare wild cards or 4 mythic wild cards when they offer them those values, but I do wish they were a little bit cheaper. They're also currently offered at 25,000 gold, which is quite a big ask, but it does mean that free-to-play players who save up their gold can afford them. I don't need to explain it here that the Arena economy is still pretty weak and pretty poor and pretty bordering on abusive of its audience. And thus it's actually quite hard to free-to-play your way towards buying both these anthologies. Of course, you can just craft individual cards if you have an abundance or backlog of wild cards too. Light and Shadow, War and Peace, and Feast and Famine are just absolute classic swords that I'm glad to see on the client generally, mainly for Brawl, if I'm honest. I think I might try and play maybe War and Peace in the sideboard or main deck of a Stoneblade deck in one of the Eternal formats soon, like Timeless, because Stoneforge Mystics on there now thanks to the extra slot of, was it Outlaw Junction? Either way, in the format now, so you can go and get equipment. The swords are slightly outclassed by some modern cards, things like Cowdras and similar, so you don't see them as much as you once did, where Fire and Ice and War and Peace in the sideboard of a D&T deck was quite common in Legacy. But I do think they're absolutely iconic cards, and I'm glad to see them on the client, so I can play with them in the non-rotating formats. Talismans and Signets, again, are pretty iconic and pretty powerful and massive additions for Brawl. These are also all great additions to Cube as well. Essentially, this is really aiming at Brawl and Cube, and I think that's fine. They are... well, that's an interesting point there. Aiming at Brawl is great and allows people to build Brawl decks with these cards, and I'm going to play them in Brawl too. I'm glad they've gone ahead and created an anthology to put more cards on the client. I kind of wish they'd just do this more regularly than they currently do to get the formats on there looking closer to Legacy, Vintage, or Modern, for example, by injecting new cards here and there. The second anthology is more towards that aim. I'm saying about them being in Cube, but really the reality is if they just code them onto the client to be playable in the Arena Cube or a Vintage Cube that they put onto there a bit further down the line, we're getting quite close to one. That doesn't mean the cards have to be accessible in formats or craftable. A good example of this is that Soul Ring and Mox Pearl, for example, are on the client, as is the whole Power 9 actually, because of Oracle of the Alpha, but those cards aren't craftable and thus legal in any format like Timeless. They're just there in the client for access to things like Oracle, or they could be accessible in just Cube, for example. So I really wish they would actually, each Cube season, perhaps just just like craft a couple more cards onto the client or code a couple more cards onto the client. They don't need to be craftable and playable in Timeless or Brawl necessarily, like Lotus, for example, but it'll be good to see them in the cube environment. What I'm saying is you don't have to wait for the anthologies to put the cards into the cube environment. That's all I'm saying. Anthology 2, though, has some wild shit in it. Let's go through. So Mother is a big one. Huge powerhouse in Legacy, an incredibly difficult card to deal with because she can target herself and other creatures to give them protection, and thus if she's untapped, your first removal spell is always blanked. You really have to play around her by like coaxing out the activation with a good like combat or removal spell, then hit them with the second removal spell. Mum is a absolute monster of a magic card. I love her. I will have some gameplay featuring Mum soon. Mum and Thalia go hand in hand. Wild too that Mana Leak wasn't on there, and same with Control Magic as well. Two absolutely iconic blue spells that I'm glad to be on the system. Mana Leak is bordering on playable as it's a more splashable counter spell, but in formats like Timeless, for example, the one that I play the most, Mana Leak and counter spell are both legal, and to be honest, splashing them off the mana bases isn't that hard. So I don't know. I guess Mana Leak is now playable in. Is it legal in Pioneer? I assume it is. No, Mana Leak was never put into Pioneer. I didn't realize this. I just assumed it was legal in Pioneer and I've never played it. Okay, again, bit of a cube insert. Thought Scour was a big part of my original like Treasure Cruise Delver deck, one of the first decks I played in Modern. I'm gonna have to give that a go. Again, just something that I'm shocked isn't on the system. Like I would assume it's on the format, not the format, the app, the appliance. What the fuck's the word I'm looking for here? Client. It's just wild to me that it took this long for them to get it on there. The Trinket Mage is another one. What a glorious addition to the game. An absolute powerhouse of commander. It's not really grabbing Sol Ring in any formats right now, but it can go grab Retrofit a Foundry and Mox Opals and similar. So again, a good addition for Timeless. Barrogoyf and Pyrogoyf are both absolute houses in Legacy right now. Pyrogoyf especially in the Mono Red Prison deck that I've just put gameplay up with prior to the anthologies coming out, so I had to replay it with Pyrogoyf. We got a new, or I say new, it's an old school Stormwind at this point, but it's new to the client, Empty the Warrens, which means there can be like sideboard plans or alternate plans for the Charbelcher decks that, you know, can get through Stony Silence or a Khan the Great Creator by storming off and making a lot of Empty Warrens tokens. I think that's pretty cool to be on the client too. The running throughput there here is that I really like these anthologies. I keep saying they're cool to be on the client. They are cool to be on the client. I think these are slam dunk editions. I think Anthologies 1 is a bit of a, you don't really need to buy it unless you really want to play a lot of different Brawl decks like I do. You can just craft the occasional thing. And to that note, it's really good that all these talismans were on common as well. They didn't like rarity shift them up to fuck with people. Back to Anthologies 2, we get Eternal Witness. It's about fucking time. How are we in the year of our Lord 2025? And my absolute darling girl, Eternal Witness, has only just made it to the fucking client. Every time I'm building a green deck across different formats, I'm like, where is my Eternal Witness? I don't want a Timeless Witness. I don't make 4 mana for this. I don't want a Green Sun's X equals 4. I want Eternal Witness and I want it now, and it's here, finally. Ignoble Hierarch comes to the client, giving Jund a mana dog, which makes him want to play a bit more Jund, as does another card in this anthologies, in Timeless. What I do find annoying is that Noble Hierarch is not on the client. The fact that Ignoble made it on before Noble, and Noble's the original one, Noble is the one that Ignoble is referencing, that bugs me as someone who loves to play Bant decks that like their 3-drop slot. Please, please, please bring Noble Hierarch to the client. Anthologies 3 needs Noble Hierarch real bad. And then we come to our first potential problem card in Raphalos Llanowar Emissary. I've just put some gameplay up on the channel of it in Brawl. The card is absolutely fucking cracked. It's actually quite interesting for a couple of reasons. So one, it's very, very powerful and it's banned in Commander, but of course, Brawl is not Commander. Brawl is a 1v1 dual Commander environment, and thus perhaps he's more fair in that high-powered, high-stakes, I say high-stakes, high-powered, low stakes but like threatening environment. The funny thing is that Raphalos Llanowar Emissary is banned in dual Commander, which is, like I said, the thing that Brawl takes after. I won 18 out of my 20 games I played with him today. He is absolutely cracked. You need a turn 1 removal spell, turn 2 removal spell, or you're fucked. Turn 1 if the opponent has a Chrome Mox, which I did in some games. Yeah, this guy is a problem. I do think that Brawl is a little bit mismanaged and a little bit like left to, maybe not rot, but it's kind of been abandon's a strong word. They seem reluctant to put any energy into maintaining it. That's probably a better way of explaining it in a nicer, softer way. I think Raphalos is going to be proof of that. This card is going to go into Hell Queue for certain and be one of the dominant cards that if you just don't have removal, it takes over the game. If you've never played with Raphalos before, what Raphalos essentially does is you play him on turn 2, you untap, play a mountain, a forest, sorry, not a mountain. Then you tap him for 3, tap your lands for 3, and cast a 6-drop on turn 3. Consistently out of the command zone. fucking ludicrous. I generally don't like them pushing commanders to be this obnoxious. He's also potentially lowly ranked in terms of his like weighting at the moment. Because Rathalos is new and they don't really weight the cards heavy. When I say weighting, by the way, I'm talking about the fact that every card has a weighting, and thus when added together it gives you a rating for the deck, which then sort of pairs you into like Hellq, the top tier decks in Brawl, for example, or the lower tiers. I assume Rathalos is already quite low because he's new. On top of that, you're not really playing any utility lands or like fixing lands that might add a few dots or a few points to your weighting, and thus 30 plus forests will just bring your average weighted card number quite low. Yeah, I think he's a bit of a problem. He's too good. Beyond that, he also marks the first time a reserve list card has been put onto Arena. I've seen people speculate that they were reluctant to do this, which has never made sense to me because Magic the Gathering Online has had reserve list cards on there for the longest time, or reprinted into new products like Vintage Masters, for example, to get them onto the client. And that allowed Modo to be the home of Legacy and Vintage, and one day I'd love Arena to move towards that too, even if the economy is a bit of a shitter. I think it's weird and wild that it took this long for them to print a craftable reserve list card onto the client, and I do understand why that had kind of made people suspicious, but I'm glad to see him because it tells us that they aren't reluctant to do so. Grist the Hunger Tide, 3-mana planeswalker that's also a creature in all zones, a absolute house of a Magic card. Green Sun Zenith Opal, which is probably where I'm going to try and play it. Wonderful addition to the client. Again, something I'm just surprised hasn't made it to it before with other additions from Modern Horizons. Glad to see it. Less glad to see Wrenn and 6. This alongside Rathalos are the two cards that I am very, very suspicious of. If you didn't know, Strip Mine has just come to Arena and thus to Timeless, and some people think it's too good. In my experience of playing up into Platinum so far in the format, I don't actually think Strip Mine is the be-all and end-all. I don't think it's truly oppressive. I think everyone's got access to it if they want it, and some decks do ignore having it in favor of other lands. If you're a 3-card deck, you probably can't afford to play Strip Mine, for example. It's not that common, but it happens. But ultimately, the format is so absurd and so wild. Like Psychic Frog is running around, who's banned in Legacy, and the Omniscience decks are incredibly consistent. Like having access to Strip Mine alongside Thoughtseize does almost make the format feel more fair in a strange way. That said, printing Strip Mine and then immediately, like less than a set later, putting Wrenn and 6 onto the client into Timeless is perhaps asking for trouble. Wrenn and 6 is currently banned in Legacy due to its interaction with A, killing all the X1s that are in the decks that kind of make the format a bit more fair, and B, its interaction with Fetch Lands and Wasteland, and Wasteland is considerably worse than Strip Mine if you haven't noticed. I am actually a little bit scared about how this is going to look and how this is going to feel. I am going to play Jund on the channel with Ignoble Hierarch and Wrenn and 6 and some Chrome Mox and some Strip Mines and some Bloodbraid Elves and some a plethora of removal and a couple of very strong alchemy cards like not Krug, so what's the guy called? Crucius, the red-black 3-drop. I don't need to tell you a whole fucking deck list right now in this video. I'm going to play it. I think it's going to be reasonably strong. It probably still gets outclassed by a lot of combo decks, but you'll see that on the channel soon. The artifact lands got finished off. Ancient Den, Great Furnace, and Tree of Tales. The blue and the black one, importantly, were already on the client thanks to Jumpstart, which is something I didn't know until this dropped and I realized. Currency Converter, another great addition for Cube. Big fan of this for Cube. I've not really played it in constructed format. Maybe it's good enough somewhere, but I'm glad to see it. Pyrite Spellbomb. If you'd asked me to bet money whether it's on or off the client already, I would have said it's on there already. Actually, wild that it's not, but again, great addition. And finally, the big daddy of all of the announcements alongside Rathalos, I guess, is Mox motherfucking Opal, baby. I love me some Mox Opal. Fast mana, but with a downside, or at least a hoop you to jump through that really makes it only work in certain decks. Mox Opal opens up the chances for an affinity deck in Timeless to really shine. Perhaps a weapons manufacturing deck that I've been trying it in as well. This is very, very exciting. There's so many different decks, from Urzas to Metalcrafts to Emery decks that want Mox Opal. There's so many different combo decks that could also benefit from Mox Opal. I even think like Charbelcher might be able to play this alongside some other mana rocks, which is perhaps a problem. I do kind of dislike the Belcher deck in Timeless, but either way, it's a great addition to the format, a great addition to the client. Just like seeing that it was going to be legal got me excited. Like everything else here, I would have bought this just for Opal. Is that silly? Am I a whore? I'm a whore. I would have bought this just for Opal. If you can't tell, I'm pretty much overwhelmingly positive about this. I'm enjoying playing Arena at the moment. I'm enjoying playing mainly Timeless and Brawl, and then for them to just drop like Mother of Runes and Mox Opal and Wrenn and 6 and Ignoble Hierarch and Rathalos on me and be like, I heard you like powerful magic, and I'm just like gobbling it up like some sort of hungry slut. I am into it. My only observation would be a couple of them are suspect, Ren and 6 especially, and Rathalos, but also that I wish this would happen more often. I know it'd be quite expensive to keep up with buying like £20 anthologies each time they drop them, if they drop them once a month, but also you don't need to buy all of them all the time, I guess. And they can also just drop them on with perhaps, I don't know, it'd help if they downshifted some of the stuff. I mean, these are all coming out of their original rarity, so perhaps I can't complain about that, but I do find it frustrating having to get like mythics to get Ancient Tomb or Strip Mine out of the special guest slot in Edge of Eternities, for example. Like, I just want to see Magic fleshed out, to have a digital version of it that exists that is just like paper Magic, really. Even Magic the Gathering Online isn't like that anymore because of Universes Beyond, something that we're not going to really see on Arena either, with Spider-Man not being even remotely Spider-Man, and of course things like the Sonic Secret Lairs and Doctor Who and Warhammer being completely absent. Fuck, if they dropped a Warhammer, like, Anthologies thing on Arena tomorrow, I would come. Anyway, that's the Anthologies. If you want to see gameplay with Rathalos, make sure you sub to the other channel and check out that video that came out today, and there'll be more content with these cards over the next coming days. I've been Vince, also as PleasantKenobi on the internet. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta for now.